January 15th, 2020. I'm Pam Hagwood, and I'm here today with Marge and Murl Huffman. Murl has just celebrated his 100th year young birthday, and we've always wondered what makes this man tick. So today we're going to ask him a few questions and see what he has to say. Murl, tell us about your childhood.
I really had a great childhood. Dad and Mom were super people. The gift they really gave me was the gift of choice. They allowed me to make choice, and then they'd say, "You're going to have to live with it," and I did. But I had that kind of a family, and anything was open for discussion at any time, and particularly around the dinner table at night. Go ahead.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Peru, Indiana, along Route 31, and 100 years ago, it was just a band of cement, one car wide, and another band of gravel, that if you met another car, you got off into the gravel. But Peru, Indiana, great circus city, railroad town, workers' home. Yeah.
What influenced you to go into teaching, and did you have prior jobs?
I think the first experience on that score really happened with the Pipe Creek Church of the Brethren, just south of Peru, where in turn the family urged me to be a Sunday school teacher early. And I enjoyed that. I liked it.
All right. Where did you go to college? And tell us your story about how you were able to go to college.
Well, I was a poor student, let me tell you. I was one of those Kettering C, D, and F students, really. And then, when I went through high school, pretty much average, I did flunk Latin. I flunked it. But it was the best experience I had because it was a year course, they didn't know what to do with me, and they put me in mechanical drawing. And that was one of the best, seeing things in other ways, one of the best that helped me determine that teaching might be fun. Then my dad was bound and determined I had to go to college. And I had taken no college prep stuff. Average student. Manchester College said, "Yeah, we'll take you on probation in the fall." So I started that way, but I ended up a bit better ultimately.
All right. And when you got out of college, where was your first teaching job?
Well, I went looking for a job in Indiana. And this story is interesting because you had to go to the township trustees to get into a system, and then you might ultimately move up to the city. Well, everything went well until we got to the last question. And seriously, you won't believe this, but the last question was, "What's your political party?" And you answered Republican, or you didn't get a job. And at that point, I said, "To heck with that stuff." And I came to Ohio, and Troutwood offered me a job, and that's why I ended up in Dayton, Ohio.
So your first experience was in Troutwood?
Troutwood.
And
3 years.
3 years? Okay.
3 years. And they put me in 6th grade to start. Then I graduated to 7th grade the next year, and then into 8th grade the next year. And that was fun. Except when those 6th graders brought one day a praying mantis cocoon, just a small ball. I never thought anything about it. Laid it on the desk. A day or two later, I had thousands of praying mantises all over that room. That was one of my first experiences with children having fun.
Now, you've been known to have a unique teaching style. When did you start developing your unique teaching style? Something that was a little different than traditional.
I'm a great thief. I am a thief. I stole from other people. Dr. Cartier, who became second at United Nations, taught me how to raise questions, and I did. And I stole from government people who were friends. I'm teaching government at that point. And that's where I really learned from other people. And the key was the word involvement. Try to involve the other person, see the other person, try to figure out what the other person's thinking. It was a ball, and I've enjoyed it ever since, 60 years.
Could you tell us about when you met my father-in-law, Ken Hagwood, and some of the fun things that happened in that class?
The first year, I taught math at Troutwood, and I was absolutely bored to death teaching math. So I went down to West Carrollton, walked up the walk in August, and met a guy coming out. Is there a social studies job in that building? He said, yes, I just made one. He was going to Bowling Green. I moved in, got the job immediately, and then Ken Hagwood was in that first class I had. And the class had desks that were screwed to the floor, and then they were the old type that had an inkwell over on the corner. Well, one day there I am standing lecturing to Ken and Sam Hagwood and those guys, and wham! They've handcuffed me to the inkwell. But where they blew it because it was just before lunch. Nobody's getting out of that room until I get the cuff off. And Ken lost a bit. But those were great days. Kids played tricks on us, thumbtacks on the seat, you name it, and then you sit carefully. Go. Ken was a great guy. Great. Oh, he's a neat person.
Now, you've told us a number of times about meeting Charles Kettering. On the golf course?
No.
Is that right?
No.
Where you first met him?
He was a member at Moraine Country Club.
Country Club, okay.
In the 50s, and right up to his death in early 61 maybe. And he loved the C and D and F kids. And he was mad one morning, angry, because some bright guys, engineers, had told him that it wouldn't work. And that made him angry. He saw me coming as an educator, and he said, Murl, he said, you're teaching the wrong kids, not the C and D and F kids. And he said, they're the ones we really need. I said, prove it to me, Mr. Kettering. He said, number one, the A's are preservers. They do not produce anything. They just preserve their A grade. They'll even take weak teachers in order to keep the A grade. And I said, well, wait a minute. You said they had 3 skills. Yep. Number one skill, they believe they can survive. Number one skill. And I asked him, how are they going to do that? He said, look, nobody expects them to do anything. Therefore, they have a freedom to do anything they want. And I said, how are they going to do it? He said one word. He just gave me one word. Gamble. They will gamble. They're risk takers. And he said, then, and I said, well, wait a minute. You said there were 3 skills. What's the second one? Oh, they'll gamble. Then the third one is they are creative. That I found to be absolutely true. Completely correct. I like the old man. He was a fabulous, fabulous person. One of the best. He liked people. Yeah.
So what do you tell teachers nowadays for the child who is just not engaged?
Well, you've used the right word, and that's engagement. So often we start as a teacher with our own position. We really don't know much about the kids' position. We don't spend a lot of time really studying kids' motives or even engaging, pulling them in. But that's the trick. But it applies to parents. The question you could ask can be applied to parenting. If you don't draw the children in, if you try to keep judging them, try to figure out their motives, putting them down because maybe they don't make the right decision. No, you got to engage them, pull them in, compliment them, build self-esteem. It works. I never sent a kid to the office for discipline in 60 years. 38 regular, 22 subby, never had a problem. 11th and 12th graders, those who would give you problems, never had it. But you keep them engaged. I got one story to tell. Here's this kid who doesn't like, I'm teaching a win-win lesson, trying to say, if we want to win in international relations, we've got to fix it so that we win, and France wins, and Germany wins, Britain wins, win-win. But we don't operate that way. But I was trying to do that. Here's this kid in the back of the row, and he stands right up. And he says, Mr. Huffman, I don't agree with you at all. I'm out of here. I simply sat at the desk. He goes toward the door. When he gets near the door, I didn't say a word. The class is stone silent, waiting for me to do something. And then the class took over. The class yelled at this kid, said, look, go back and sit down. And you can walk out the door, you're going to be in more trouble. They solved the problem for me. They became engaged. That word's a big word. Go.
All right. Recently you've told me about a unique way that you give tests.
Well,
I'd like you to tell us about that.
I'll tell you what. I tested for 20 years doing it this way. I discovered that kids knew all they knew on tests within 10 minutes from the time you put them down. They blacked out this dot or they circled that or true false it or what have you. But that was not doing the job. And at that point, Kettering, who was interested in these C, D, and F kids, I decided I had to change my testing program. So I got a 14-inch sheet, 36 questions, no numbers, no number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Straight answer, no true false, no dot to black dot. 12 questions on that sheet from the textbook, 12 from previous discussions, 12 they never knew what was going to be on. At the end of 10 minutes, I said to the class, turn the sheet over, it's blank on the back. You get up and you talk. The students got up and taught each other. A lot of A students didn't like that, but C and D were working to survive. But the A students didn't understand that what was happening as they helped me to teach the C, D, and F, they were putting stuff up in their head, which worked beautifully when they went on to college. And I'd get letters from them. Well, at the end of that, then everybody went back to the desk, stood, then they could ask me questions. And every kid had to ask a question. But he's got to remember all of this and he's got to put it in his head. That's what counted. But I didn't mention, integration took place. A's were talking to F's. A's were talking to the others. Integration between black, white, whatever, Kentucky, Tennessee, you name it. Anyway, it worked beautifully. and they taught each other. That's it. It works. Engagement. Go ahead.
If you could give a new teacher a couple tips, besides what you've told us, do you have any other tips that you'd like to pass along?
I think what I've lived with for 100 years is getting up in the morning, and in the morning watching 2 or 3 things. Number one, attitude. We all get up in the morning with an attitude. Is it good? Are we up? Are we down? Then we get up with a rise and shine altitude. We have a good day, bad day, we're not thinking straight. And then the third item is choice. So it's attitude, altitude, and choice. And if we have those correct, and I always tried to be ahead of my students, getting in, having cheerful comments with them before things happen. And if you do that, you engage, and we're back to that word. You engage, you pull in, and when you pull them in, they like it.
Now, one of the things you told me about engaging is you had a note card you had the children fill out.
Well, when they came in, the very first week, every student is new. You've never met them before. And you've got to get them on your side right away. I had a 3x5 card they had to fill out. Name, where they lived. I wanted to know that economic living thing. And then the third question dealt with, how do you see yourself as a student? Are you an A student, B student, C student? What kind of student are you? And some didn't want to put that down. I said, that's all right, you don't need to. All I have to do is go to the office. I can find it out anyway. But I'd kind of like to know how you see yourself. And that took care of that. The next question dealt with, what is my job as a teacher? They gave me every answer in the book. No, not the right answer. There's only one answer. And they would say to me, Mr. Huffman, what's the idea? What is your job? I have only one job, and that's to help you as a student get where you're going. Now, I know a lot of you out there are going to say, oh boy, that's terrible. You tell them where to go. No, you don't do that. Now, the next question, oh, I had to answer that, by the way. Let's put it on there. And I said, it is important for me to help you where you're going. We did that. Okay. Now, the next question was, I just repeated, didn't I? Yeah, I sure did. Okay, how do you stop a teacher from being a Western repeater over and over and over that garbage? I had a railroad sign. I said to the students, out there are the trains. Engineer toots the horn, ready to go. Conductor back at the back has a flag and waves it. That signal says, move it, get it out. Or at night, he flashes a lantern the same way. I gave my students the power to shut me off. When you shift power to students, then you've helped their esteem. They'll play some games with you, but you're ahead of it. It works. Anyway, and then, was there another one I did? What was the other question I had to ask? Oh, I had to ask, how do you want me to treat you? Will you volunteer questions and answers and what have you? Or do you want to be called on? Or should I just be thrilled that you're here today? I wanted to answer that. By the way, do you know how the A students answered it? They wanted to be called on. But it was the C, D, and F students who were saying, I'll volunteer if I feel like it. And they do. It was a funny thing to start the week with. with new students. And it worked. It worked.
What about the twins you were telling me about who didn't want to do anything?
Well, I had a rule. Here again, a lot of you teachers out there are going to disagree. I said to my students, if I ever assign you an assignment that you think doesn't fit and you don't need to do it, I want you to tell me. And then we'll find something to substitute for extra credit to fill that spot. Well, I had these two guys, twins, that didn't care for government. They didn't care for government at all. But they said, we don't need to do that assignment. I said, all right. So they had to make a choice. And the choice they made was to go and interview, take time off. I'd write them an excuse from school, take time off, go visit the county coroner here in Montgomery County. They did. They went up, and the coroner liked what was happening. They liked what was happening. They spent 3 or 4 days. But what happened changed the students. Suddenly, they were engaged. We're back to that. And suddenly, they are moving. Not C and D, not F, up to B and A. Seriously, it works. Get them in, drag them in.
It sounds like you never had to really be strict with a student.
No, didn't have to. Didn't have to. And as I said about the kid who walked to the door, the students helped me. I was a thief. I had fun.
All right, now a few philosophical things.
Okay, shoot.
When I just say the word child, what do you think?
I think of a piece of clay that's ready to be molded in the child's image. Now, the child may choose Pop and Mom's image, your image. Who knows? But that child is clay, putty, loose, and apt to become anything, and they do. I am amazed at my students who have become everything that you can imagine, period. But that's the way I see. You see the student not as something to dictate to tell, to say, you're going to do this, do this. Well, graduation came, and we were having grad problems. And the principal said, you're taking graduation. I said, no, I'm not. He said, you are. I said, no, I'm not. And then I said, yes, I'll do it if you'll do it my way. And he said, how are you going to do that? I said, we're going to vote for everything that happens on graduation night. And the students are going to vote it. Whoa! I had faculty members who told me, tell them what to do and make them do it. I had parents who said, we'll get your job if these kids vote wrong. No. I began the process of student. First motion, well, seniors got together. What are we going to do? I said, it's your show. You've now got the power. And they proceeded to make motions. First motion they made was Honor Society did it. And they did it. The Honor Society said, we don't want to sit on the front row anymore. Second motion, the Honor Society said, at that point said, we want to sit with our boyfriends, girlfriends, and our friends around us. We're part of the class, not front row. Then, second motion came from these same people, what are we going to do with valedictorian, salutatorian? And the class voted. And the class said, we'll vote them as speakers, and we're going to have 4 speakers, but all voted. We'll vote them if they've been a help to the class. If they haven't been, they don't make it. Boy, right now I've got Dad and Mom yelling at me, giving me holy hello. It was bad news. Then came, guess what was the third motion? Are we going to censor? And the class said no speech will be censored until we give it. We've never had a bad speech. 50 years of this since we started it. Then came the next motion with regards to the board. The board member and then 2 members had been passing out diplomas over here. 2 members passing out diplomas over here. The class said, wait a minute, here's a chance to honor a teacher. We'll take 1 board member. Ha! Imagine telling the board what to do? Oh, anyway, and the board didn't like it. But they got 1 board member and 1 teacher and honor. The teacher was honored by vote of the class. Over here, same thing on the other side, 1 board member, 1 teacher. We gave the power to the students 50 years ago. They're still doing it today. We're the only school that I know of in the state where the students actually own graduation from start to finish.
Very nice.
Yeah, it works. Give kids power and they'll do it. They're great caretakers. And they're your kids.
Just a few more. We're starting to round the bend here.
I don't mind. I'm having fun.
When I say family, what do you think?
I love family, and last week we had the big party. About 250 people were there. And a number of people called and said, can't make it. Families that's a holiday weekend between Christmas and New Year's. And I said, that's great. Number 1, family comes first. That applies to my family. And that's the way I treat them. And that's the way I want my students to treat their families. Mom and dad, grandpa and grandma, the whole bit.
When I say the word life, what do you think?
Life? Oh, I have a mixed one there. And it's very mixed because I want people to be themselves, make their choices, be free. But in this country, it's so difficult for me to be free and allow you to be free. That is tough. And we haven't gotten over it with women. We don't want women to make choices about health and what have you. We don't. We want to tell, we men want to tell women, you know, what they can do, what they can't. That's baloney. And so when I get into life, I want Islamics to honor their religion. I want Hindus in India to worship their religion if that's what they want. I want people in this country to worship. We've got religions which still believe in spanking kids, beat them up, spare the rod and spoil the kid. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. But it's what they believe, and I don't like it really. But they're choosing it, I guess. But life to me means choice, 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 and more choice. And more freedom. And more freedom.
Tell us about your foundation.
Well, when the children, I told them I don't want a party. 100 years old, I don't want a party. Rick came from Chicago, Ann came from Worcester. They said, Dad, you're going to have a party. Okay. The same day, 2 girls, the Galbraith girls, one from Columbus, one from Naples, Florida, sent me a greeting, same time, $100 bill. I said to the family, wait a minute. What are we going to do if we get some other money like this? And they said, why don't you start a foundation? And then they decided, I wanted to create a foundation which dealt with dreamers, because that was my problem. I had problems in school. I was a dreamer about what was going to happen later in the day. Okay. But they wouldn't let me do it. They said, nope, can't use that term dreamer in the foundation. Said the government kind of requires responsibility. So you got to put your name on it. So now we've got a Murl Huffman scholarship. And we've got maybe, I have no idea how much in it now as a result of what's happened. Probably 4, 5, 6,000, I don't know, somewhere there. And I hope that maybe it'll grow. But my requirement was that the kid graduates from school, good standing, but you cannot measure him by SAT, you can't measure him by ACT, you can't measure him by some other flunky test. But I want this kid to be able to take the scholarship, use it at Ohio State or Cincinnati or somewhere else, but also to use it for a trade school. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need welders, we need auto repair. We've got all kinds of service jobs that we don't have people for. And I hope that my scholarship will be used by C, D, and F students who have a passion for music. I don't know why. That's the scholarship. And I hope it works. This is our first year. We'll see if it works.
Now, how did you get to be 100? What are your health tips?
What I said is, and we beat it. By attitude, your attitude controls your gut, your stomach. When we have lousy attitudes, we get nervous stomachs. When we feel bad, I got a headache. I feel bad. I ache all over. And we all do. I've got arthritis. I ache across my shoulders bad. But my attitude, my altitude, it takes care of my innards if I keep control by choice. You ask me how, there it is. That's the way I see it.
Well, Murl, I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and I always enjoy the wisdom and joy.
Pam, it's been fun. It's
that
been
you
fun.
Share. And
if anybody finds it fun, please, we're at Bethany Retirement Center. Most of the people here know who I am. With this voice, they can't miss. So, if you're interested in something I've said, come on, call me. We'll talk. I like it. It's fun. We'll argue, and I'll listen carefully to you. Bye.
thank you, everybody.